All right, let's keep chatting about the 23-player roster for the United States women's national team who will go and represent USA in the upcoming World Cup. Ahead of the roster dropping, we got some news, pretty big news, around Becky Sauerbrunn, the team captain herself. It was initially reported out of The Athletic that she would miss the upcoming World Cup due to a lingering foot injury. Becky Sauerbrunn eventually releasing a statement of her own, confirming those reports, and how heartbroken she was, but ended her statement by trying to go ahead and show support for her team and egg them on to go and win a fifth World Cup. So, lots of questions, I think, out of this bit of news. We see today, almost a week later, several days out from this news being reported, that the impact that Becky Sauerbrunn has on a team and teammates and within the locker room is next tier,
Yeah.
next level, out of this world, incomparable. Okay? Because here we are, days later, with an official roster drop that people knew, including teammates, know that Becky Sauerbrunn is not going to be on this roster. And Andonovsky and a handful of players who were made available to media today fielded a lot of questions
Yeah.
about the absence of Becky Sauerbrunn and just continued to reiterate, um, her absence and the significance of that. But I think there's also those question marks around, well, who's going to be the captain? Who's going to wear the armband? Et cetera, et cetera. There's like a very specific, question that people want to know. And unfortunately, the answer is maybe not just one player. And I think that was ultimately confirmed in what we witnessed today from the virtual media availability. Andonovsky, we heard from Sophia Smith, Alex Morgan, Naomi Girma, Crystal Dunn. All players asked about that and in different phases of experience going into this World Cup. Smith and Girma are two players who will participate in their first ever. It's going to be number 2 for Crystal Dunn. And for Alex Morgan, it's going to be number 4. And I think amongst the 4 players and Andonovsky, ultimately alluding to that there really isn't replacing, there's no replacing a Becky Sauerbrunn, and that there's going to have to be kind of a collective unit here to kind of draw and pull from leadership. There have already been those conversations with Megan Rapinoe specifically and how different her role is going to be for this national team during her 4th World Cup. She is going to celebrate a birthday pretty soon on July 5th. Gonna be 38. She's gonna have different minutes management going into this World Cup, and a lot of that is going to be pulling from her for leadership experience and morale. And sometimes that might actually come while on the bench.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting to hear Alex Morgan specifically kind of allude to some of the captain by committee stuff within this media availability, because she said, I'm going to have to step up. Kelly, Rapinoe, etc. There are going to be players.
Everyone is going to have to step up to even try to fill a fraction of the hole that Becky Sauerbrunn leaves.
It's going to take literally all 23 players. I'm almost kind of interested, Lisa, if there's a player who's not making a return to a World Cup, maybe one of these 14 first World Cup time players that you see as maybe a player who might step up in a little bit of a leadership role.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I want to say that Naomi Girma is going to step up. She won't be the captain of this team. I know that's a question that a lot of people have right now, and especially in our chat. However, I think that we have seen Naomi Girma throughout her club play in the NWSL. I mean, you look at last year, her rookie year in the league, and as such a young player, she wins Defender of the Year. She wins Rookie of the Year. In her second year, she is named captain of her San Diego Wave team. I think this is a player that is mature beyond her years in Girma. So on the pitch, she is an incredible lockdown defender. Before any injuries to Becky happen over the last year or so, Naomi Girma has solidified herself as a starting center back on this team and under Vlatko Andonovski, and she has been around Becky Sauerbrunn, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, all of these other veteran leaders, and she has listened and learned and asked questions, and she plays in front of Kaylin Sheridan, Olympic gold medalist in goal for San Diego and Canada. This is a player that has been a sponge in her 2 years as a professional. She was a leader in college at Stanford. I think that in just her first World Cup, we will see Naomi Girma step up and take on more of the leadership role. And I think her position on the field as a center back does lend a hand to how she's able to do that. Vocally, she's going to need to organize the team. Visually, she steers the ship from the back. She is going to have to be the glue. But in the absence of Becky, I think there's going to be a little bit more pressure on her to be a leader in that back line. And I think the personality of Girma is one that can step into that role and has the natural ability to take on a little bit more pressure and
Yeah.
shoulder some of the work that needs to be done for this team as such a young player.
No, I'm with you. I think even in having conversations with this player, like she just sort of shows you in how she plays, interviews, communicates, that she's miles ahead of what the numbers are in front of her at this moment. I mean, I would even argue that maybe she's not super unfamiliar with having to have the pressure of a big game or big games, plural, in front of her. This was she had to help lead Stanford to a big game in the national championship title, and this is just her second year in NWSL play, and has already had to help their captain, essentially their back line, a little bit through a playoff scenario. So there's some experience here that I think folks aren't maybe taking into consideration because of all of the World Cup of it all. But I'm very excited for this player in their first World Cup, and to kind of show us that they not only can do a lot of great stuff on the pitch, but they're capable of doing that within a game and in the locker room as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's spot on. Like, it's going to take multiple areas for something like a collective captaincy or collective leadership to come out of this locker room.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't think it'll be one player that wears the captain armband, and we haven't even seen that in years past. It is a bit of a committee at this point. But do you think Girma will actually wear the armband, or no? Do you think it'll be who? What players do you think are the top runners to be putting on the armband when they're on the
Yeah.
pitch, knowing that could rotate as subs happen and as the tournament goes on?
Yeah, I mean, taking into consideration the match load
Yeah.
and sub scenarios, I think we could see that armband get passed around from Alyssa Nair and Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe. I would like to see Crystal Dunn included in
I
that
would love to
scenario
see
as
that.
well. She was probably one of the players who I think had the best quotes about leadership in the captaincy moving forward in this World Cup. Out of that media availability, she basically said that she doesn't need an armband to
Mhm.
know that she's capable of leading and giving examples of leadership on and off the pitch. And I love that. And I think that's the kind of energy that this team needs to try to tap into a little bit as they continue to march forward into this World Cup. And I have to imagine that Becky Sauerbrunn is what at this point going to be a FaceTime away. So it's like
Yeah, exactly.
it's just one of those things where I'm just kind of like, I'm actually the leadership angle of it is something that I'm not necessarily super hot seat kind of concerned about going into this World Cup, because I really do just believe that there are some pretty standout and key players that they're going to pull
Yeah.
from in
Yeah.
this tournament.
I agree. I think I echo that with Morgan, Nair, Dunn. I would love to see Dunn wear it at some point. I think Lindsay Horan, I'm going to throw her name in there as well. This is a player that has, in a lot of the flux that this team has gone through over the last 2 years, Lindsay Horan, although dealing with some injury herself, has been a very consistent factor for this team. and for Vlatko Andonovski. And I think that she has good communication between the coach and the players. And I would not be surprised if we see her slip on that armband as well. Joe Birdwell Jr. saying, hey, please pick one captain and stick to that. Joe, I get this. I get it. I don't think we're going to see that, though, because you have to look at the longevity of, first of all, a soccer game, 90 minutes. You want your captain on the pitch the whole time. And that's why Becky Sauerbrunn was a tremendous one. And she still will be the player's captain, right? As Sandra said, a FaceTime away. However, in the rotation of subs, you want your captain always on the field. So that's why we see that rotate. We see it all the time across all different leagues, all different sports. And personnel provide different things for the team that the team needs. That's why we often see multiple captains, whether that's 2 or 3 being rotated, because they provide different things that the team needs, especially at different times. And when you lose someone like Becky just a month before you're jumping on a plane to go to the World Cup, you don't just give it to someone else. You kind of split that responsibility. I mean, only time will tell, right? We've got 30 days until the U.S. puts on their first kits. They head out to the field, they do their national anthem, and they set to play against Vietnam in the opening of the World Cup group stages.